Welcome to Military Broadcast Radio.
Every view, every listener, and every share helps our mission.
Every donation helps keep Military Broadcast
on the air. Every donation makes a difference. Thank you for your support. mbradio.us.
Good morning. Welcome to the world of conscious positive thinking with MJ, where your thoughts become your power and your mindset becomes your compass. MJ is here to guide you through a journey of self-awareness, emotional mastery, and empowered living.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Yeah, man. Just feel it. Let it flow. Peace and love in the air, you know. Woke up with the sun on my face. Breathing deep in this holy space. Feeling good, no need to race. The rhythm of life moves at its pace. Good vibes rise like smoke in the sky. Love in our hearts, no need to ask why. Dance with the trees, sing with the breeze. The world of conscience puts the mind at ease. Colors swirl in my open mind. Truth and joy in the thoughts I find. A smile's the cure, a word's the key. Positive thinking sets you free. Good vibes rise like smoke in the sky.
Oh, that's such a good song. I keep thinking how Amber put that together. Thank you so much. And Joel is in our background today. We're on TikTok. So if anybody out there in TikTok land, we are on TikTok today. And we have a special treat for you. This is going to be a fun one. You're going to find out a little bit more than you probably want to know about little MJ here. But that's okay, because guess what? We are always, let me get on TikTok here. Hold on. Let me get on there. Hey, TikTok fans, there we are. Okay. Here we go. So, on the TikTok boards, and we are bound for destiny. So today, it is August the 31st. August gone. Bye-bye. I don't know where it's going to, but we're moving fast these days, and I can feel that. I don't know about you, but I can really feel that. So let's get to our angels numbers, because we got part 3, and I think this will be some interesting and intriguing information for you. So today, August 31st, 2026, that number, 083126, it equals a 2. We're in the 2 branches today. The angels are assisting you to feel balanced and harmonious. They are surrounding you, your home, and loved ones, bringing security and stability to all. The angel power word today is time. I just said that. Where's time going? Angel number contains the number 26. That is our year. It's always there every time we do this. The angels know that you feel empowered when you feel compassion for others. They now ask that you feel the same compassion for yourself. Little self-love action. It is very important that you say no to requests that make you feel uneasy. Trust these sensations in your body, as these are your inner compasses. Today's number also has 83 in it. Archangel Michael, we love that here with the veterans. He is our soldier. Archangel Michael is with you and delivers the gift of time. Your time is a valuable resource, one that can bring you great abundance. He is here to relieve time, pressures, and will assist you to make wise choices regarding the use of your time. This gift also empowers you to be fully present in time, thereby allowing you to give undivided attention to clients, family, friends, and yourself too when you require it. Angel number also contains the number 12. It is now time to ask the angels to show you the complete picture. When you do so, the angels will deliver great knowledge of the finer details regarding any situation. Archangel Michael is also around you, giving you the strength to stand up and be true to yourself. Lastly, the number is 31. It's time to retreat from the hustle and bustles of life. When you seek serenity and solitude, you'll be gifted with ingenious ideas to restore your health. Relax. It's okay. You have time to do it. Nature is calling you. Well, look at that. That is one heck of a, that right there is just one heck of a, an outstanding little gift that we all have here going on. And that to me is phenomenal. Just phenomenal. Okay, here we go. Woo! What is Consciousness series? This is now part 3 of 6, where thought becomes power. Did you realize that your thoughts could actually be your superpower? Let's get into it. Let's see what's happening here. So, as you know, we know ourselves here as TWOCPT, right? TWOCPT, because who the hell wants to keep writing out the world of conscious positive thinking? My typing so bad, I always screw it up and then it never gets found. So TWOCPT is a much easier way. And here, for anybody who's new on this station or never heard it, when I say man, I'm not talking about male. I'm not talking about testosterone. I'm talking humanity. Man, right? It's man, because man controls our thoughts when we get labeled. So everything's a label. Science, psychology, philosophy, math, you name it. English, geography, everything is labeled by man. So that's why I always say, and who says that? Man. So if you see me say that, that's what it's about. Because everyone goes, why you keep picking on the men? I'm not picking on the men. Quite ironically, quite frankly, it's not man, it's man, not men. So anyhow, I just thought I'd let you all know that one again. So for the last 2 shows, we've been asking one enormous question. What is consciousness? What is it? Right? Part 1, we explored the mystery of consciousness, right? What is awareness? What is perception? What is attention? What is observing our thoughts? And then last week in part 2, Man Discovers the Mind, we looked at humanity's attempt to understand the name and the mind. We went through Freud, we went through Jung, we went through Maslow, we went through Skinner, we went through ego, the unconscious mind, the subconscious mind, the conscious mind. And then we actually talked about boxes and labels, what man labels and how those boxes form inside the brain. We talked about how consistency and experience help us recognize, name, and understanding of what we're experiencing. And we kept coming back to air. Air. Air is always there. And I simply wasn't aware of it until I started creating these things. And I left you with one of my old expressions I leave in every class when we talk about the awareness and how our consciousness is. And I've always said, when you become aware of air, you've reached creation. Because how difficult is it to see air? We know it's there. We're breathing it in. But to literally come face to face with air, I know there's man, well, look at man, humanity, somebody out there who is going, MJ, you see air, it's right in front of you. No, I see nothing besides something else, a screen or energy that's in front of me. I don't necessarily see the air. So if you say, well, fog when it's rain, well, that's not air, that's water. Think about it. Huh. So today we're going to take those next steps. Just keep that on the back burner. You'll be an aha here sooner or later. Because once we become aware of a thought, what do we do with it, right? And that's where our part 3 begins. Thought becomes power. So today we are exploring the relationship between thought, language, belief, intention, imagery, emotion, and conscious choice. And I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to tell you that every thought magically creates your reality. No. I'm going to be asking you something different. Do thoughts create your reality? Or do thoughts influence the choices, perceptions, and actions through which we experience reality? Now that's our ponder for today. Do thoughts create our reality, or do thoughts influence the choices, perceptions, and actions through which we experience reality? I know it's deep, but it's fun to go deep every once in a while. So here's today's seed. A thought may arrive without permission. What we feed, repeat, speak, and act upon becomes our conscious responsibility. So let's why this to death, because I love these whys. And this is what in my classrooms, I go deep. I go really deep. A thought arrives. What do we do? Have you ever been sitting just quietly? Nothing, just for the day, just kind of sat down and a thought pops in. You're like, where the hell did that come from? And it might not even be a thought about anything today or anything that had to do with the day. It might have been about, I don't know, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. And you're like, okay, where did that come from? Right? So I mean, most people in life, they're like, yeah, I have done that as well. And I was like, okay, well, where did it come from? I didn't consciously call that thought in. I wasn't looking for it. There it was. It just kind of bam popped in your head. So the first thing I want to separate is having a thought is not the same as consciously choosing a thought. Does that make sense? Because thoughts can arise from something like something we're seeing, right? Something we're hearing, maybe a smell, a memory, an experience, a word, an emotion, something somebody said 30 years ago, sometimes we may recognize the connection, and sometimes we just don't recognize it. And sometimes, like I've been doing while preparing for these series, I suddenly make a connection and go, oh, mind blow. Wow. Mind blow. How the hell did I not see that? Or how did I not know that? That's awareness. That's when that light bulb comes on. That right there. That experience or information may have already existed, but awareness recognized it with something about it. And once I become aware of that thought, now I have something that I didn't have a second later because I didn't have that thought to connect it. Yeah. A choice about what to do next then comes in, right? Because we have to talk about that. Now we have to have a choice of what we're doing with that thought. So let's talk about words, because man puts words, they label them. So words become very influential. For instance, my father, I always tell you about my father. Nope, he was in the military, but he was a very strict, he was very authoritative, he was a very disciplined man, and he was raising what he considered good citizens, right? So his philosophy in our household was always, and we were very sports minded as well. Let me just give you that information. And he would always write, winners never quit and quitters never win. That was huge. That was installed very little, because very little, when you get frustrated, whether it was playing a piano, whether it was playing a clarinet, whether it was trying to shoot hoops in a basketball, or trying to learn a flick on your hockey stick, or trying to figure a knuckleball out when you're the pitcher in softball. Let me tell you, there was a lot of times this little girl here would go, I just don't care. I don't care. I don't want to do it anymore. And my father would be very upset and say, quitters never win and winners never quit. Keep going. That was installed at such a young age. And another word that he installed at such a young age is the word can't, little girl, is not in our family's dictionary or our vocabulary. So remove it. Can't. So they were kind of like the little two strict words. Every time he said can't, he goes, "What? Did you just say can't?" All right. So I didn't know anything about consciousness theory, obviously, at 4 and 5 and growing up. And I wasn't studying affirmation. I was a child. I was a kid. I was just loving life. I was exploring the nuance of life, right? Why does this tree's bark grow like this and you can rip it? Obviously, I was talking about whatever it is. I just lost my thought. Or you have the bark to go up and down, right? So now you're looking at it going, what's he talking about? Right? I was a kid. However, my father gave me language, and I'm sure your father gave you some type of language that you used your whole life. And through consistency and experience, that language stayed with me. Stayed with me. He was just a man who made sure that our goals would be accomplished by a quality of the brain that says, I can and I will. And that was my father. He beautifully established, I believe, the will that nobody could take from me. The soldier with the little block on her shoulder that I dared somebody. The will, the audacity. I had it mixed up probably because I was a kid, right? So now think about all that. Just I want you to ponder on words, something like that, that your mom or your dad or your somebody in your family as a child, but it was constantly spoken and nailed in, almost like a coffin. To the day I die, I should put on my epitaph. Right? Quitters never win and winners never quit. And there I am, and right? Wow. Mm. Someone else had a thought, right? And they turned that thought into words. I heard those words and I processed them with every little mite that I had as a young little Mary Jo, right? And eventually, those words became part of my internal language. No matter what I tried, no matter what I did, like if I tried to play oboe, right? The mouth was different than the other's mouth, so it was a harder like force for air to come through air. Use that example. So it was just one of those things where when I wanted to at 12 or 13 say, I can't play this thing, I heard my dad, winners never win and winners never quit. Right? So it was the will that I had to constantly keep moving forward. And I believe today that was really important because many thoughts running around inside of us started somebody else's words and patterns and how they were going to project themselves through life. So you could have heard them, maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, a constant something with the teacher, a coach, a doctor, a commander, a minister, a partner, a friend, right? An uncle, aunt, something. Someone says anything, you know? So let's say that my dad didn't teach me the word you can't, right? But somebody kept saying to me as a child, well, you can't do that because you don't know how. Well, you can't do that because you don't know how to speak properly. Well, you can't do that because you don't know how to read. Well, you can't do that because you can't jump high enough. Well, you can't do that because you're only 5'4". And eventually then what would happen? I would eventually say, I just can't. And I would be that person, an adult, saying, no, I just can't. So I praise my father for that. I was never an I can't person. And I'm not sure I know how to yet. I haven't developed the skills yet. Everything's a yet. Maybe you didn't have the experience. Maybe you didn't have the instructions. Everything is a yet, but it's not as, yeah, I can do this. However, I need some further instructions. However, at this time is not going to allow me to do this. So I'll do it next week. Do you see how every single word pattern I got around that word can't? Does that make sense? So when did like their language become my thought. If somebody else said I couldn't, when would that have happened? And when does my repeated thought become something even stronger than that? That's called belief. Let's go through this. I'm going to bring in, remember I tell you I always have a table when I do my classrooms and I start pondering. So the first chair I'm bringing into my table, her name is Louise Hay. She gets a chair at my table. Louise Hay became widely known for teachings involving affirmations, self-talk, emotional patterns, and healing. I really didn't learn by sitting down and reading all of Louise Hay's. Trust me. I had a reading deficit, which meant I had scarring, which means I am not. I'm not going to just pick up a book even today as an adult and read it. That's like the funniest thing. People would give me stuff and I'm like, I don't read. Do you have it in an audio or a documentary? Or I watch, I listen, I experience, and I take a lot of notes. So everything that I'm telling you about these philosophers are pretty much cliff notes or already experienced when somebody goes, oh, that reminds me of Louise Hay. And right here, this is why I'm telling you this. So I did not sit down and read Louise Hay books. However, I know who she is. I have learned about her in class. And so I learned through living of the experience what that she was talking about. And especially when other masters or teachers or even my cliff notes in my classroom doing my philosophies pointed out by listening, right? Classes, teachers, watching, doing and experiencing. I'll guarantee you could do the same thing when somebody points it out. They're like, do you know, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no. Right? And then you encounter something like the Louise Hay thinking. And I was like, wait, I've experienced pieces of what she's talking about. There it was. So I'm not asking you to accept any claim attached to any of her affirmations. I'm asking just something very simple, which is if I continue to tell myself that I can't do this, what happens to my behavior? Do I walk through the door? Do I ask the questions? Or do I attempt something unfamiliar? And do I even notice another possibility? Now, change one sentence. I don't know how to do this yet. We just talked about it, right? Change the words and then same situation, different language. And then that language gives consciousness something different to process than, nope, I can't, and shut it down, right? I didn't have the word can't because my father wouldn't allow us to use it. However, I was always a can girl. I can. I got to find it. I got to dig. Even if I have to go to the library and research it, right? My libraries weren't beautiful computers like this today. They were Dewey Decimals and it took hours to research it. But when you finally figured it out and you finally learned it, you're like, I can do it. And it was it was so empowering as a child. So yes, language gives consciousness something different to process. And that's interesting to me because we're going to move forward now and we're going to go from thought to the language to a belief system. And this one I love because when does a thought then become our belief? A thought isn't automatically a belief. A thought can enter and disappear, or I can return to it, repeat it, speak it, and attach experiences to it. I can also feel something when I think it. And eventually, I may begin accepting that thought as truth. Imagine that. So now we're gonna move somewhere else. So my question now is merely, what am I thinking? What am I thinking? And my why is, what did I do with that thought after it arrived? Did I repeat it? Did I speak about it? Did I create an imagery around it? Did I draw it out and try to think about that? Did emotion attach to it? And did I begin making choices from it? This goes back a little bit to part, I think it was 1. I came on with my sunglasses on. People couldn't figure out the box, the label. They couldn't figure out the emotion. This is part of this. That thought, their thought went straight to the glasses, but they couldn't have a box for Mary Jo Studio glasses. See what happened there? They created now a box. Because now we're getting closer to understanding how thought becomes power. So now we're, how far are we in here? 25 minutes. I got to take a break. So when we come back, I'm going to give you one of the greatest parental backfires of my childhood. I told you I was a handful as a child, and my poor mom and dad, but my backfire here is my mom thought she was giving this beautiful young Mary Jo a warning. Apparently, this one turned it into an entirely different belief system. And that teaches us something very, very important. I'm going to leave you with what somebody intends to communicate is not always the thought we received. Oof, we'll be right back on that one because that's going to be real fun. You're listening to Military Broadcast Radio, where veterans always get to have a voice. And on that station, this is my show, The World of Conscious Positive Thinking, and we call it TWOCAP. And I'm your host, MJ. And we're going to return right after we hear some messages from old Beaker Squeaker.
Every setback is just a setup for a comeback. Keep quacking forward. 90% of what we worry about in future never happens.
Whenever things get rough or it feels like you're at the edge, remember this: storms pass.
Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Hey, thanks for supporting our channel by watching and listening.
All right, here we are. Welcome back. So right before the break, we had that question. What somebody intends to communicate is not always the thought we receive. All right. So we have a thought, we have language, and we're moving toward belief. Now we need another word. I'm going to choose the word interpretation. I love that word. And apparently, I need something to come up on the screen now. Let me see how to do this. And I know Joel's in the studio. He's going to help us. So I'm going to try to put this up on the stage. Okay. And now I'm really tiny. Well, he can fix it. But I want you to see this card here. This right there. I want to show you this. That is the Fool. I guess we need to put that up because the Fool, what was said isn't always what we received. My mother used to compare me. Now, before I do this, let me just give you an idea of little MJ. 31 broken bones, 7 major illnesses, infections and stitches. My body is like a railroad track with scars. The Geisinger would literally call my mom, and I had other brothers and sisters, and my mother would always say, what did Mary Jo break, scrap, or do now? Always. They loved me. Everybody knew every time the phone rang where she was in the OR there, she would be like, what'd Mary Jo do now? She would be surprised if it was one of my other brothers and sisters, but she goes, truly, it never was. She goes, it was always you. So if you don't know tarot, this is why I'm putting it on. This is the tarot card. And let me explain the picture because this really matters. The Fool represents the beginning of a journey. Traditionally, we see a traveler moving forward, carrying very little, always approaching the edge of a cliff. There are positive meanings associated with the Fool. beginnings, openings, trust, possibility. You can see them there on your screen. And it's always moving into the unknown. Now, there is also a warning sitting right there in that picture. See the warnings? And that means when it's turned upside down. So this, I have to laugh because when you see the upside downs on this thing, let me just read it here. It is recklessness, naivety, foolishness, carelessness, boredom, stagnation. I really think that she wanted this, and I laugh because I know what she was saying. You're the fool. You're always stepping on the edge. You're always. Now she was right. I would try to do like the high wire acts, except I would do them on the farm pastures, barbed wire fences. I know. As a kid, okay, as a kid, I had no fear. Literally, no fear. I would climb the highest tree and see if I couldn't balance on a limb. I know, reckless, just reckless. Or I would be on a cliff walking the side, and she'd be like, "The fool, you just get down." My poor mother, I'm surprised she didn't have a heart attack with me because she is a mother who absolutely loves her kids. And she would constantly just go, "Mary Jo, get down. Mary, get down from there. What are you doing now?" It was a circus. You ever see the little round comic, the Family Circus? Oh my gosh. Like, I can laugh now, and so can my mom. But literally, she always compared me to that fool. And what you now realize is my mother was probably meaning to me, "Stop jumping off the damn bridge," right? How many times you're not jumping off the bridge because everybody else is jumping off? You don't, look before you leap. Watch what you're doing. Come on, girl, have some caution. Get some, get some fear in you, something, because she was getting ready to wait for that phone call. Yeah, but that young Mary Jo actually received because of faith was such a huge part of my mom's teaching. My mom, from the time that we were Christianed, always taught us faith. You must have faith. You have to keep moving forward. Have faith to know that if a door shuts, a window opens. Have faith. No matter what you do, God's going to be there. You must have the faith. And my dad, quitters never win, winners never quit. Keep moving. We cannot use the word can't. So you see how the two philosophies, my mother taught me faith. Just keep moving. Go forward. Have the faith. Have the faith. Faith, faith, faith. My dad, quitters never win, winners never quit. And the word isn't you can't. Okay. This is why I said I think parental backfired realizations here. And I was going through the classroom. One of the classroom teachers go, "You realize what they installed and then how they tried to get through to you," because trust me, my mom used to be a broken record. Get down, get down, get down, Mary Jo, get down, Mary Jo, get down. How many times can you say, "Mary Jo, get down"? And then it was, "Get the hell down." And then she was like, "You're just like that card, that fool card," because she was at her wit's end. Now, let this one breathe in and laugh with it, folks. Okay? Because now, keep looking at that card. She meant for the upside down fool. And this is why I'm telling you the story. And I'm laughing today because I became aware of that whole scenario in my memory while putting this together. And this right here is why I'm telling you the story. My mother had a thought, and she had an intention, and a very demanding intention behind it. Because she wanted why ever I didn't have fear, she wanted to install it to protect me, to get it. But her words, I didn't interpret her words. She had massive intention behind it, and she used language and imagery to communicate it. Look at that. The fool. It looks like someone's going to step off the edge, right? I heard her. But sometimes, let's just face it, as a child, what do children generally hear? Womp, 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 womp. Right? That's what they hear. They hear the womp womps like Snoopy and the Peanuts, right? The adult. However, I did listen because I told you I had a reading deficit. So my acuities for how I learned was by listening, and I was very sharp in listening. And I received the language. I understood the image. Yet, what she intended was not necessarily what I interpreted. Now, why was that? Because I wasn't an empty box. I already had experiences. I already had meanings. I already had labels. And all of these things were by man telling me the word after I experienced something. I was like Dora the Damn Explorer as a kid. I would lift up things. I would look at insects. And if it would bit me, then I'd be mad at the insect. And mostly as a kid, I'd probably stomp on the insect because it bit me, or I'd kill it. And then I'd go home and I'd say, this stupid bug that I killed, look, it bit me. And my mother, well, what were you doing? Well, nothing. I was just pulling up rocks, by the creek. Yeah. And most importantly, partly because my mother's own teaching, I already had faith. She embedded faith in me so much that it was just a bug bite. It wasn't anything more. It was just a bite. Keep moving on, right? Because I had the faith. That was the first teaching. So, mom's message entered my consciousness and passed through something young Mary Jo already understood. My mom's intentions, which was, look where you're going. Except she taught me faith, and my father taught me never to quit and keep moving forward. So what do? I just keep walking. Think about that. She's telling me, how do I get to this child? So she randomly says that I'm the fool, like that major arcana card is how she said it. And I go, the fool? She goes, yeah, you're right there off the cliff. You're always walking on the edge of life, always at risk, and blah, blah, blah. I said, no, I just keep walking. Now, the wire, I figured she was telling me, yes, I have faith. Go, girl, keep moving. Go explore like Dora the Explorer. Go experience life. So how often does that really happen? Let me take the full card down now. Let's see if I can do it. Here we go. There we go. Here we're back. Okay. So how often does somebody actually say something believing they're communicating one thought, and the person receives it something completely different? And which thought becomes the belief? And what they intended, or what I interpreted. Think about that. It happens a lot. If you actually stop and ponder, you say something and somebody goes and does it. I'll tell you another quick story. I didn't know Spanish. Here's a great interpretation. All I knew is that a new law in Guatemala had come out, and I needed to have a headshot of all my workers. And to get them into the trade shows in the United States, I had to get like these little visa things, and it had to have the headshots and whatever. So I did the best I could in trying to tell all the different varieties of people in Guatemala about I need a headshot. Well, however it was interpreted, however I used Google, I don't even know what I did. They feared me. They feared me because how I wrote it was, next time I see you, we're going to take a headshot. But however it was written in Spanish said, the next time I see you, I'm shooting your head off. So imagine these Guatemalan people when I'm like, oh, I'm coming next week, and they're like, you're scaring the shit out of people. And I go, what are you talking about? And one of the people who knew me well, they're like, MJ, dude, you really got to brush either up on Spanish or put it in English, and they'll try to interpret it. I go, what are you talking about? I would never threaten somebody like that. He goes, well, this is how you wrote. And I don't remember what it said in Spanish. Well, that was like the biggest joke. Again, interpretation, right? Like that, and I'm shooting everybody's heads off. There's my mom. Get off that damn thing. Stop ticking on the bridges, you fool. On the fool. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to keep going forward. I know the bridge. The bridge is an arc. I know. Keep going. You see how beautiful words by man label can interpret so much of our life by our own experiences. Now, the message passes through us, and we have to think about it. A parent says something to a child. A doctor says something to a patient. The commander says something to the airman. A minister says something to its congregation. And a teacher says something to a student. And the speaker begins with a thought. The translation that thought into language, and the listener hears the language. And then the listener processes those words through their own experience, labels, memories, imageries, emotions, beliefs, and others they trust. Think about today's newscasts. Think about today's social media. What is happening right there? Interpretation. I beg everybody, before they get angry and before they start posting bullshit, can you please look up your facts? Because if somebody desperately wants something to happen, they're going to twist a narrative in their interpretation, in their thought pattern, no matter what. It's human deliverance by man's labels and man's experiences. It's not trying to piss another person off. It's trying to say, this is what I took from it. Well, did you listen clearly? Did you see the facts beforehand? Were you missing some information? Okay. This is the awareness center. So now what do? Now it creates this interpretation, now creates a meaning. So communication may not be, I think, I speak, you receive my thought. Yeah. It may be, I think, I translate my thought into words, and you hear those words, and your consciousness interprets them through what you have already experienced or knew or know. So then you created your own interpretation for that meaning. Mind blow, right? Why would our mind do that? It's not an intention. It is filing the labels of the boxes of what we already know. And the minute you heard something, your brain automatically went, oh, there it is, bam. And everything else that was said disappeared. MJ with her glasses. There was no box inside of the brain why she would be wearing those glasses. And then that thought went nuts. Oh, maybe she has eye infection. Maybe she has puffy eyes. Maybe this, maybe that, maybe something. Blah, 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 blah. It was the awareness. I think 4 shows ago, right before the show, I was drinking coffee. And it was 2 minutes before the show. I literally spilled coffee all the way down the front of me. And I joked around and said, no, I have my protective pillow today. Not to allow anybody to be aware that I spilled coffee all the way down the shirt it was very obvious that I did it. And there was only one person who realized I was squeezing a pillow. Maybe more, but only one said something. Again, the experience to interpretation, to a belief system, to now our boxes of labeling, now it creates our meaning. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay. So if that meaning gets repeated enough, spoken, pictured, felt, or it's acted upon, then what happens? Now it may become just part of our belief system. And that belief system, now think how this works. You know it to be true because you heard it firsthand. You're the one who knew because you heard it. The problem is what you heard or saw or read. Did you go back to actually find out if it was factual? Did you find out if it was truth? I do a lot of that. I get a thought in my head and I know that I didn't read it somewhere. I may have experienced it. Nope. May have. Nope. Where is this going? Why did this thought come in my head? And then I have to Google it or I have to research it to figure out, is this true? I don't say anything to anybody. I just do my own due diligence, which I believe if more people did, they would be making slanderous comments or repetitive comments about others. They would find out for themselves if it's true. And if it's not true, why does it affect us such in a way where we're that angry? You're not dying. Nobody's dying. Stop it. Where's that? That's belief in patterns, and that's belief of intentions, and that is word recognition. That is your thought. So, yes, now that belief system is called your thoughts become your power. And here's the beautiful part of what I just discovered about mom. Adult MJ doesn't have to tell little MJ, you were wrong, little girl. That's not what she was saying. And I can explain that. I understood. I understood mom was teaching me, can you please pay attention? Where young Mary Jo received it as, come on, Faith, I'm moving forward. I'm listening. I'm going. Do you see the humor? Today, I hold both. I have faith. I move forward. And look where the hell we're walking, right? Where have we been? The ironicity of putting that whole connection. I haven't thought about that day in such a long time, but yet it popped in my classroom just for this. Isn't that fun? The thought. Because maybe awareness doesn't always destroy an old labeled box. Sometimes awareness just makes that box even bigger, right? Because my label was a positive, a new beginning, a new adventure. And here we go. And look at me with my little bag. And here I come. The fool walking on the cliff. No, the fool going, look at that down there. Look at that over there. Look at the world I can explore. Right? Yeah. And guess what? Today, that's all I know so far. That's all I know. When you go through it going, why couldn't she just say it? And then if you think about it, she did. How many times did she say it? And you were listening to womp, womp, womp. But then she brings out something that completely out of the box. And my mind went, heard my dad, heard my mom. Faith, go forward. Faith, yes, you can. Quitters don't wear. That installation made me who I am today. But I'm very thankful for it. I love that little girl inside. I love that little Dora Explorer girl. Because without her curiosity and without her wanting to experience everything she could possibly experience, I wouldn't be who I am today if I think about it, right? So, imagery. How do you see the fool, right? How did I see that card just now? Upside down or moving forward? And notice what just happened there. I described the fool to those who didn't really know what that card was. And if you look at it, oh, look, they're traveling, they're having a journey, they're right there on the cliff. When I looked at that and experiencing Arizona's, the Grand Canyon, I was like, well, of course, you're always on the edge and you look over it. When you're climbing the mountains and you're looking over the thing, you're always on the edge. So growing up in the mountains and you would climb to the top of the mountain, you're right there on the edge overlooking the beauty. Think of that ironicity. Yeah. So you see how my interpretation as a child really wasn't what my mom, it kind of was a backfire, but it was a backfire for good because she reinstalled what I already was doing. She reinstalled it. Keep going. And my mom is probably listening going, oh my God, that is not what I said. I told you to get the hell down from there. Every time you turn around, you're falling out of trees, you're breaking your bones. Get down. I understand. As a mom today, in my mature, beautiful MJ, I completely get that. 100% get that. So You were able to put pieces together because those words already carry meaning for you. Last week, we talked about how consistency and experience create labels in our boxes that we store in our brain, right? Label box, label box, label box. Oh, box category, box category, category divide, category divide, right? That is man installing labels, increasing the patterns of the boxes for categories and division. So, again, last week, talking about how consistency and experience create labels and boxes. If a word has absolutely no meaning to me, I can't automatically create the same familiar picture from that that you can. Because if you experience something and I didn't, you already have your imagery. You already have your box. You already have that knowledge, that experience. But if Dora the Explorer hasn't experienced it yet, and you're telling her something, and she gets to that apex of a crossroad, and you experienced going left, she was like, "Ooh, well, what's to the right?" Well, I don't know, but I went left. I know, but what's to the right? If you experienced that and this happened, what's on the right? That was me. That girl. Good. You take that experience because I can listen and I can hear your experience. And now I can put that in my filter of my brain. But let me go this way. Maybe we can encourage and enrich whatever boxes and enrich the labels and enrich whatever knowledge and experience. Yeah, that would be MJ. Always outside the box, always taking the other way, always. Always. Did I just say always? I did. That's a good word. It's true though. Sometimes I have to hear my words and I go, wait, always? Yeah, but that is always me. It is. Always taken another way. And everything I have ever done, I came out of the boxes. I don't like the swamp boxes of man. I don't. I love to be with man, but I like to be on the outside because I get to experience something different. So if a word has no meaning to me, I can't automatically create the same familiar picture from it if that if you understand that if that is what you can. So I'm not I'm not asking which came first, thought or image, right? Because we've already traveled further than that. What I'm asking is what happens when language gives our imagination centers something to work with? Ooh, now we have a picture with words, with imagery, with conscious. Now we have another one of my beautiful mind powers, the imagination center, right? That's what it's creating. That image now creates the imagination. And once imagination creates that picture, what happens if we just keep returning to it? What happens if we add emotion to it? Ooh, now we have a picture and emotion. Wait, let's think about that. Or what happens if we believe it? Oh, do we believe in what just happened? Do we believe in that image? What happens if we begin moving toward it? Well, okay, well, let's experience it. And now our thought isn't sitting by itself anymore, right? Yeah. So, in this part, now, now that we have this and we're now in this thinking process and we're pondering, well, she's right. Where's this going? What's happening here? What is really happening? What box am I in? What imagery am I seeing? Who gave me this imagery? Did I experience the imagery? Did I think it did? Man, that is welcome to MJ's life. Every word is dissect. Every event is dissect. That's how my brain works. Everything is a dissection. So this is why I I th- this is exactly why Pink. I don't know if you know the artist Pink. She's a singer. Her song, I have repetitively played and sang to the top of my lungs. That is all I know so far. It is, if you've never heard it, pick it up. Maybe it help you because it just keeps returning while we keep working with this episode. That's all I know. I don't know anymore. In the classroom, they kept going, MJ, I go, I don't know. I don't know where that took me. I just had the thought, and the thought became this, and then I looked it up. This was this, but that's all I know. Yeah. There's one belief line that matters to this teaching so much. Inside of her lyrics, one of those, which brings me back to my mother and her faith, let the wall crack because it lets the light in. I showed you the divine mercy. Let my chest open, you'll see my light. Yeah, it's dark, but when I open it, what was coming out my heart, right? Let those walls crack because it lets the light in. There it is again. So there, you don't need to know the song. Now you have an image. You have a wall. And all of a sudden, on the side of the wall is the outside. And now that wall has a crack. And now you can see light through the crack. So you know that crack's pretty deep through the wall. You don't need now you just have that image coming in with those beams of light coming in that crack. Or think of when you're sleeping and you close your curtains, but there's a crack near the window of the curtain. And your circadian rhythm goes, hey, it's light out. Get up, baby boy. Get up, baby girl. Right? So now we have this image, really have this image. So that line, when you see that, it is like you don't need a whole wall to collapse to know that there's something coming in, right? You already know that there's light. And if we crack anymore, we might be just destroying the whole wall. You already saw the crack, right? You don't need the whole wall to collapse on you. The crack allows you to see something you couldn't see before. Does that make sense? That right there. Hold on to that. That is the awareness connection. I'm well aware that wall has a crack, and I'm well aware it's deep because I'm well aware I see that shining light. And that's telling me something, right? And what is the name of that song? The song's title. That's all I know. The wall's cracked, it's deep, and there's light coming through. That's all I know so far. I saw something through the crack. I became aware. Get it? That doesn't mean that I suddenly possess the entire answer, and nor do you, right? It's impossible. Impossible? Well, for me, right now, there's a lot of, that's all I knows. That's all I know so far. I don't know. But I got this far. Just like last week with Jung and Freud. Freud made a map. Jung made a map. Maslow made a map. Skinner made a map. See how that worked? Every foundation builds a map. And every foundation builds another evolving to be. That's why I like philosophy. It's not right or it's not wrong. It's an experience. It's a thought. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you're no better off than where you were, right? So here we go again. That's all I know so far. I saw a crack, became aware. That doesn't mean that I suddenly possess an entire answer. Maybe tomorrow another crack appears. Maybe more light gets through tomorrow. Maybe more light gets through today. Maybe something I believe expands. And maybe I discover that something I thought I understood needs another look. And all I can say, that's all I know so far. That's all anybody can say. This is where the point I reach. So experience can come way before understanding. And now we're going somewhere really deep. Because when I look back over my own life, I see something repetitive always with me because I didn't read. Experience came first, then my awareness, then the questions, then the patterns, then understanding, and eventually my intention and conscious choice. of what to do next. That wasn't how I would have described it when I was young. Young MJ wasn't walking around analyzing consciousness and choices and interpretation and labeled boxes. Trust me, I was not. I was too busy getting bit by whatever insect was underneath a rock. I was too busy climbing trees and mountains and just exploring life. Experience. She wasn't walking into another event and then another, then another, then another. And then here we go. So, that was just who I was. I experienced I had an event, an experience I had an event, and I experienced I had an event, and I experienced I had an event. See what I'm saying? It was the merry-go-round. The merry-go-round and round. It truly was. And over time, those experiences gave me what I call markers, right? So when you see something, every time I picked up a rock, I got bit. Well, that was okay because it was just that guy. And then a little bit later, I picked up a rock, I got bit. And I was like, nah, well, that was just that spider. I picked up a rock and I got bit again. Well, that was that Helgramite. At what point did I stop lifting rocks? Today, when I'm on the mountain, I actually have a hook. And now I take a hook, I pull the rock back if I want the rock for whatever decoration or whatever I'm doing in my, right? But I know that now, because I learned it, there could be copperheads, there could be Helgramites, there could be, silverfish, there could be whatever, right? This is a realization that has to happen through events. Once you experience something, your mind starts saying, well, that hurt. Let's not try that again, right? But as a kid, that mind center, that frontal lobe, that it wasn't there. So I had to experience all these things. I don't regret any part of my childhood. I don't regret I don't have a regret. These are learned experiences that has enriched my life so much that today I'm here talking to you and I'm writing philosophy books about conscious. If I didn't live it, I couldn't be sitting here. Does that make sense? There were so many aha moments in writing this episode. And sadly, the panic, because all this was written maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. And I went to change something because I had an awareness. And I was like, oh, this really needs to go into this podcast. I went to delete a paragraph and it deleted the whole classroom, the whole book, the whole producer's note, everything. Friday and Saturday was going nuts trying to put this show back together. That realization. And finally, it was my husband and the classroom teacher saying, this is all your words. You already lived it. You already know it. Get the outline, fill it in. Why are you panicking? Right. Because the events were experiences for me to undergo, live, understand, and process. They're my events. They're my truth. Nobody can take my past away from me, my earned living events and experiences from me. They're all mine. You have yours, right? Your events as a child or a teenager or early lessons in adulthood, they're your learned practice lessons for maybe someday why you learn them is your aha moment. So I just had to breathe, calm down, put on my music. Everything's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I have enough material. Like I had to tell myself, I couldn't just give up and say, no, I'm taking a radio day. No, it was a series. So did each new health event in my shake some of my boxes? Because I had a lot of health events. I had to write them. Did it reestablish old fear markers? Did it break one? Right? These were patterns. These are patterns I had to look at. And did everything that I learned before the event give me something different when that next event arrived? Yeah, I just told you. I don't pick up rocks anymore. Now I have a hook. I put the hook on one side of the rock and pull back to see what's underneath that. Same as logs, right? Because we're always having fires. Any logs that are in the forest that have been there and rotting and dried, I'm not picking it up. I'll take a hook and I'll push it with a hook, right? Or I'll push it with my foot to see what's under it. Maybe there's fire ants. Maybe there's termites. Maybe I don't know. Why are you getting bit again? I got bit enough, right? You don't have to put that wet brick across my head again. I understood it. So that's important in your healing story. It gets really important because you find these patterns. You're like, no, 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 no. Let's think about this, right? I'm not walking on any limb anymore. Those broken bones hurt, right? I think the final limb that I was on, I think was the crack in my neck. Like, I was done. I was done balancing. I realized maybe the high wire balancing act wasn't for me at some point, and we had to move on. But those healing stories, those stories allow us our experience, allow us our events, and allow us to have a further base knowledge. And that's important. So, because perhaps every event wasn't simply something that happened just to me, it was something that I had to learn or undergo or witness or be part of. I had to live it, I had to process it, and I had to understand it. And then the next experience met a person carrying everything that she learned from the experience before it, right? That's how I live today. Well, I've already experienced this, and here it is again. It's a pattern. Why is this a pattern? Well, I already know what to do. I already know if fire gets out of control and it starts burning underneath the barrel into the grass, I know I have to either get water or stamp it out. Learned. Or I'm going to have a massive fire. These are all learned patterns that we go through. I hope that makes sense, because now we're going to move from a thought and belief into experience. What happens when life gives us another event? Does it shake the same box? Does it create fear? Or does everything we've experienced and learned give us a different way to meet it? Folks, when we come back, I'm going to take you into my second near-death experience of my lifetime. It was in 2015, because that event changed what I consciously chose to do. I made a decision. You're listening to Military Broadcast Radio. My name is MJ, and on this beautiful station, my show is called The World of Conscious Positive Thinking, and we call it TWOCAP. Let's see what Beaker's up to. We'll be right back.
Dream big, start small, but most of all, start.
Whenever things get rough or it feels like you're at the edge, remember this: storms pass.
Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
The station where our veterans' voices are heard. MBR Talk.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Oh, welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. Remember why I'm telling the story. This isn't going to be a medical history lesson, and we're looking at one very specific path here. An event happened, my truth of my experience, the thought after it, the awareness that hit me, the intention after the awareness, then my choice that I made to claim my action. Okay. In 2015, I was now on, because of all my surgeries and autoimmunes and my double mastectomies and my kidney failures and my thyroid failing and my liver failing, my body was failing. The medical put me on all this different medications, from urology to hepatologies to hematologies to oncologies to, I was on, I'm not kidding, it had to be at least 18 inches by at least 12. That was my pill box. 12 different big pharmaceutical drugs and probably another 10 herb, vitamin, mineral supplements. It was a lot. It felt like that's all I ever did was take pills and set my clocks and set my reminders in my phone for this pill, that pill. It was crazy, crazy. One morning I woke up and as soon as I opened up my eyes, I felt floaty. It was really a weird experience. And yet my body felt numb, very numb. I go to get up and I didn't really feel like I used muscles to get the experience was I almost came like off my body. It's how I felt. And somehow or another, I felt like I just cascaded and it was like in air. I felt like this thin, again, thin, desirable air, this bluey white air. And I walked from my bedroom down my one hallway, down the other hallway, into the kitchen, into the dining room, because I felt like my heart was just not even beating. There was something wrong. There was I I didn't I couldn't figure it out. But I knew that I had to get to the table because my medicines were on the table. My my O2 sensor was on the table. My blood pressure cuff was on the table. My blood sugar was on the table. My EKG monitor things were on. Everything was on the dining room table at this part because I could roll my wheelchair up into the dining room table. To be walking in a dream state and afloat, it was awful. I couldn't I couldn't figure out what the hell was happening. I knew that I was thirsty. It was the only thing that I was like dying of thirst. Somehow, I remember drinking like a 36-ounce bottle of water. And that was all I remember. And then I remember being in my mind, just it went dark. I don't remember anything after that. I don't remember times, but I do know I woke up. And when I woke up on the table, the time read 11:11. That number always sat with me for the rest of my life. I woke up very confused. I was I was looking at all the things on the table. My blood pressure said 78/56. When I looked at my blood sugar, because I saw that I had obviously taken it, my blood sugar was 510. My pulse ox read 90. And my heart rate on my blood pressure cuff said 55. And the warnings on my blood pressure cuff were coming off. It was sirening. As I woke up, like I said, I was face down on my dining room table. And the only thing that I remember is air. Air. Thin, light, favorable. How it looked, how it was. I wasn't consciously mapping my lifetime air patterns at the moment. It was while it was happening. And air became now a consciousness of mine. The experience came first. When I came through that health event, I had information. And when I came through, I had all of my medical information. I had all my lived experiences. I had years of learning. And I had a decision to make about how I wanted to move forward. This was 2015. My injury in the military was 1987, late 87. Actually, most of it was 88. The shot happened in 87, but everything happened in 88. Year after year on meds, another med, another med, another med, another med. Yeah. And now it's 2015. And now all of these meds, one increased my A1C, one increased fatty liver, one increased stenosis of my kidney, one increased my heart irrevocably, one increased thyroid disease. You ever see the commercials? Well, you have eczema and this new prescription, blah, blah, blah. And look, now you can wear your swimsuit, you can wear your clothes because now your skin rash, nobody will see your skin rash. However, it can cause kidney failure, it can cause liver dysfunction, it can cause you to vomit and have diarrhea, it can cause headache, blindness, and it can cause sexual in and you're like, all I had was a skin rash. Come on. The humor. The humor of the audacity of our ego. It's like, I am so vain about my rash that I'm going to cause every other organ in my body. Okay, I can't. I couldn't. I couldn't. I could not do it anymore. And that decision, how to move forward, happened right there that day. That day. At that time, like I told you, there was 24 big pharmacy meds and my functions would be failing. And they would send me to another doctor and they would put me on another med and they send me to another doctor and put me on another med. Who's that sound like out there, folks? I did not want to wake up the next morning and throw my medications away. I did not. That is not what happened. And I'm not telling you to do this. I'm telling you, this is my experience, and I am forewarning you, don't do it unless you understand. My healing process unfolded carefully over approximately 16 months to come off of all this medicine. What changed was the direction of my thought. I knew I need to go another way because if the shot of big pharmacy didn't kill me, this medicine is killing me slowly. Remember, I was very athletic, very, until they put me in a wheelchair by a shot. My audacity and my faith to keep forward, that was implemented. Keep forward, have faith, keep moving, don't quit. That was really good. That installed such a will, such a faith, and such a beautiful awareness. Now, didn't know it at the time, but I didn't have fear. I actually had to ask my grandmaster, I don't have fear. And she says, you do. I said, I do? Please explain. She said, you do. You fear trust. And I started smiling. Out of all the men who cheated on me in my whole entire life, out of the friends who I thought were friends who abused me, they destroyed my heart trust. She was right. I feared it. Poor Ozzy. I had to build a man wall, and he knocked it down. He knew about it because I told him flat out, I don't trust men. And that men, I noticed I didn't say man. That's men. I never trusted them. And I always had an issue trusting them. I allowed to work with them. I enjoyed fishing. I enjoyed hunting. I enjoyed these things. But I would never let them close to my heart ever again. That was a trust issue. Getting off the subject. You start to recognize little patterns. And when you start recognize these, we got to get them to go away because it could be an old belief system. It could be an old pattern, or you could have said, what was my part in that? And now we have a balance. So with my medicine, I needed to go another way. I knew it. There was just something there. That thought became my intention, and intention influenced my choice, and my choice influenced my actions. And actions became part of then my healing process. One pill at a time through all, I didn't just choose one thing. No, there was acupuncture, there were spiritual surgeries, there was Reiki, there was Chinese medicines, there was the salt cave, there was infrareds, there was energetic frequency patterns going through my body, there was plasma energies, there was light therapies, there was cognitive therapies. I had more holistic Eastern traditional medicines and alternative medicines and miscellaneous medicines than you could shake a stick at. Lymphatic drainages. Every week I would have massages with lymphatic drainages, getting the energies out of my body. I would have Reikis. I would have acupuncture. I did a world of stuff, a world of it to come off all of those medications. Event, experience, thought, awareness, intention, choice, action. That's why this particular near-death experience belongs in my show today. I'm not telling you think positively and your illnesses disappear. That's quite not it. You have to find the frequency that blasts the illness. You have to find the vibrational codes that blast it. You have to figure out your pain bodies. You have to use affirmations to keep a high positive consciousness. And I'm telling you something I actually experienced. It was a change in thought, changed what I did next. And that is one way that I understand your thought becomes your power. Did everything I learned participate? And now I have another why. Let's ponder on that one. So, over my lifetime, I accumulated practices and experiences, right? Prayer, breathing, Reiki, meditation, energy work, faith, visualization, therapies of red lights, therapies of music, therapies of vibrational decoding. Visualizing that, having the teachers and Western diagnostic testings. Okay. I will always, always, always use Western diagnostic testing because it tells me what is wrong with me. It diagnoses me. Different ways of understanding my body and different ways of understanding consciousness. Reiki Thursday became a very pivotal part of my life before all this. So I started having, Ozzy used to love him. I was still in my businesses in 2009. I had the sportsman's addiction business at the time, and I was doing fishing and hunting all over the world. I was still in that industry when I met up with Ozzy. And when he met me, his day was like on a Thursday was always the slowest day. And I said, I can't. That's my Reiki Thursday. He goes, well, can't you change it? I said, what? No, I can't. I can't change it. There was no way that I was going to change something that made me so freaking happy. There was just no way. And not only did it make me happy, it really gave me a better thought process. It gave me a new awareness, a new thought, a new everything, because those Reiki Thursdays became my time. My kids were with their dad, and this is now, I need to just let my brain go. I need to stop because my brain doesn't stop. And so those practices was extremely important for my self-health. And my self-health was extremely important to know that I needed that break. So naturally, knowing that I had these on Reiki Thursdays, this is where you can talk about how these things accumulate over time. I was doing Reiki Thursdays before I was even a practitioner. I just knew that my hairdresser's twin brother Dr. Scott was a certified Reiki therapist. And I was like, oh my God, I need this. I need to let go of my, everything, my energies. I just, that sounds awesome. And the very first time I did one, I was hooked. I was hooked. I needed that time. I wanted that 2 hours every Thursday. I didn't care. I wanted it. I wanted the half hour before talking with him. I wanted the hour of his services or however long. And I wanted that time afterwards because it took me out of my everyday rigidness. And at that point, because I owned my own business, I worked 7 days a week with getting these high influential people with money to their destinations in fishing and hunting. So Reiki Thursdays were always there. My breathing, well, you know what? My breathing, and I told you about air, 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 air. So my air was an issue when I had chickenpox as a kid. It was an issue when I had high fevers. And then I was 7 years old, skateboarding with my friend Nancy. I remember falling so hard on my coccyx that I lost the air. I couldn't scream for help. I could see, I was at the corner. I could see my mom's house, but I couldn't ask for help and there was no air. And there I sat rolling and rolling and rolling on the street. Air, air, breathing. And then stupidness in middle school. There was a fad going around, like a hazing fad at the time, where you would take all these big, deep breaths rapidly, rapidly. And then somebody, most of the time, it was one of the football players, they would come and they would squeeze you from behind. They thought it was funny because people would, fall. They would dig in the ground like a dog or a cat. And the minds of children. I understand. My mom's probably going, oh my God. I know. I remember when it was done to me. I was the last one. It was right before we got all called in because the cafeteria and then you stepped out, but the actual school then was this way. And I remember I was the last one to do it. And the minute he squeezed me, the bell rang and everybody left. I hit my head. I was in that unconscious way again. I hit my head so hard, I fell to the ground. I think it was Mr. Fagley, if I remember his name correctly, who took me to the nurse's office. And again, the phone call to my mother. And what did we do this time? I ran into the wall. I remember just telling them I ran into the wall. And it was so hard. They're like, well, and he's like, I found her at the wall. She can obviously see the brick in her head. She ran into the wall. Yeah. I trusted my classmates with their little games, choices. Breathing was always a part of it. And then I was like, wow, I learned to free dive. That was part of it again. Then in 4th grade, then I started thinking, oh my God, I started clarinet in 4th grade. Wait, before that, my mother had me in choir. All of this required breathing. Never called it breath work, but it was rhythmic breathing. All of it. Every experience I had playing my clarinet, playing the oboe, playing the sax, playing the bassoon. This was all breath work, playing the flute, breath work. Got in the military, had to do the gas chamber, holding my breath. Learning to dive with different types, with the regulator, with different types of air. Air. People said the body can't live with food and water. No, air. Air. Got pregnant. What'd they teach you? Lamaze. Breath work. That's breath work. Lamaze. Twice around. Every time you get upset, you take that big old deep breath and exhale. Breath work. Then later, I started realizing breath work became a part of my life. I didn't even realize it was called breath work. Lamaze is trying to breathe into that pain. Well, if it worked for Lamaze and I had the broken bones or I had whatever, I had pain in my body, I used it. Breath work. I used it to breathe into that pain. Breath work. Breathing. Think about it. Then came prayer, the power of prayer. meditation, energy work. Then you have your teachers, your diagnostics information. Then you have one major magic answer. Everything you had learned becoming available when another event arrives. Yeah. I remember feeling like my hands were magic going back into these things with breathing. Hurricane Andrew hit. And I remember my hands didn't even realize what I was doing. These were all experiences. When I put my hand on my uterus, stop the pain. When I helped the ladies stop the pain. So when healing happened, can I isolate one thing to tell you that healed me? I can't. No, I can't. I can't sit here, which is why I made the disclaimer. Don't do it unless you really understand modalities and you understand your path and you understand your way. That healed me. My question is, was that a risk? Was I the fool? I had faith that there had to be another way. Because if I continued to allow big pharma to try to treat my body that was auto and neuroimmune, I'd be dead. That near-death experience taught me that. So my question becomes different. Did everything I had learned give me more ways to respond to the next event? That's what fascinates me. Maybe events themselves just became just part of education, right? Learning how the body can work, learning what to do, not to do. That's the biggest sign of education. Knowledge is learning the experience. People can read a book, but most people don't have endemic memory. You're not going to remember every passage of that book. You're not. You're going to read it and get the outcome, and that's the gist of it. And something that correlates to an experience that you had inside of that or resonated with you, then you remember it. That's the label. That's the boxes. So then maybe those events themselves just became part of that education. Did one health event shake my boxes? No. Did another establish a marker? Maybe. I don't know. Did something that frightened me once stop carrying that same power after I understood it? No. Did experience change my thought? Yeah. And did thought change my response? Oh, hell yeah. Did my response change the next experience? By far. Now, we're not talking about positive thinking as pretending everything is wonderful in life. We are talking about conscious participation. Western medicine freed my will, freed my soul. And I want to make something very clear right now. I believe in Western testing and diagnostics. If something happening inside of my physical vessel, I want to know. I'd be the first person to tell you, take my blood, take an x-ray, take an MRI, I don't care, test me. No, I don't say you're going to give me shit that I'm going to take. I want to know. Give me my blood work. Give me my imagery. Give me my tests. Give me my numbers. Give me my diagnosis. Give me the information. Because it's that information that gives me my awareness. And once I have awareness, I believe I have a choice and a free will and how I move forward to heal me. And so do you. Just because you go to the ER and you're in pain doesn't mean that they have to establish all these things. The problem is humanity, man, is getting so used to taking a pill before they go, if I take this pill, what are the side effects? What's it going to do? What do I have to look forward into later? COVID, take the jab. How many people are dying of massive just heart attacks, aneuritic rhythms, blood clots in the lungs, taking the jab. because science said it was good. But science is man. And that's all we know so far. That is your choice. Nobody else's choice. Now, if you were demanded to take it, now there's a problem. It's not about the job, but there's a problem between what you made then. If they demand you to take something to keep your job, you had a choice. You're like, oh my God, hell no. So when does our choice balance? MJ, I had to have a job. It was COVID. I hear you. I didn't take the job, and I had to have a job. I didn't take it. Demanding. Well, I'm not taking. You can demand all you want. I didn't take it. Well, I haven't taken an inoculation since 1987, but that's besides the point. My husband didn't take it. My mother didn't take it. My sister and I pressured her. Don't do it. Please don't do it. There's not enough information. I go, how can they not discover cancer? And yet they have a jab already within months. Come on. I just told you. My rash is going to cause all these other issues in my body. What do you think that's going to do? Don't do it, mommy. I know you like science. I didn't know. She didn't take it. God, thank God. Thank you, God, and all of our ancestral lines who got through, because my mother would have been that person. She believes in science of medicine, and that's her choice. But I am so thankful she didn't take it. So awareness. So once you have awareness, I believe you have a choice and free will in how you move forward in that healing. You do. Maybe some people, I know people who took job after job after job after job after job because they wanted to travel, or they wanted to do this, or they had to do this, and they wanted to keep performing, or they wanted to, keep going to work, and they wanted to blah, 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 blah. Yeah. I can ask questions, and I can learn, and I can use what I've already known and experienced, and I can decide what healing practices belong in my health, in my body, in my path. So do you. You can change direction like I did. I changed the direction when I received new information. And for me, science doesn't remove free will. It can give me information with which I exercise it. Testing, information, awareness, understanding, choice, and action. And there it is again. Woo! Let me pull up another chair at my table today. Let's go, science. Science now gets a chair at my table. Science is not my enemy. It's not. I believe in other sciences. Maybe big pharma. I'm not so sure. There's not enough information for me. Next week, I'm going to give science almost the entire show. Today, just one piece. Modern psychology gives us ways to investigate self-talk, expectations, and learned patterns and behavior. Neuroscience gives us another important word that we have to talk about today. You ready? Big word. I'll break it down, though, so don't panic. Neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity. In simple language, our brains can change through experience and learning. That does not mean think about $1 million hard enough and your neurons in your brains will just put that $1 million right in your checking account. Wow, if you could think that, we'll think positive going forward in a job or a creation or a philosophy that you're trying to do or write a book. Maybe it will. But just thinking it's not going to do it. There has to be an action, right? That's right. So that's why, that's not why, but that's not what neuroplasticity really means. Okay. So let's get back to neuroplasticity. It means that the brain isn't simply a finished machine that never changes. Experience matters. Learning matters. Repetition matters. Behavior matters. Knowledge of it matters. And it gives science something measurable to investigate. Where does the evidence end? What does philosophy begin? Where does spirituality interpretation begin? And all those boundaries, do they matter to me? I don't need science to prove every spiritual experience that I've ever had. And I don't need spirituality to replace a diagnostic test. They can answer different questions. So science can give me testing, and it can give me measurements, and it can give me information about my physical vessel. And once I have the information, I believe I have free will and choice in what I do with it. Now, when we come back to that spot, now you have to wonder, what is some things humanity eventually called tradition began with somebody trying to explain the experience? And what if those traditions later influenced how human interpreted their own experiences? Wow, that's a thinker. So let's just move on to it then, right? So in the next part, why? Not a declaration or a fact, and what is important. So human beings have been attempting to explain life, death, God, creator, and what may happen after death for thousands of years. Experience, story, tradition. Different traditions use different imagery, such as passage, light, judgment, heavenly realms, gates. In Christianity, that Christian imagery, many people know a very popular picture. It's called the pearly gates. And I suddenly had a, wait, what is the story about those pearly gates? Why? Someone has an experience. Some man somewhere had an NDE. Mind blow. This was my mind blow with this thing. Was an NDE visiting the pearly gates, and then the philosophy is, you're not ready? You can't get through? If you get to heaven before I do, just bore a hole and pull me through. I ain't going to believe my Lord no lore. Wow. Look at that song taught in Girl Scouts. And then how do they communicate something that may be incredibly difficult to describe? By language, label. They put a word on it. They described what they saw, what they felt, what they understood by words that were already given to them by man. Other people hear it. Then the story gets repeated. These were the words that they used because there was another label for an NDE at the time. Images developed around it. Meanings get attached, and over generations, some ideas can become part of a tradition. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I'm a philosopher. I'm a mentor. I'm a bridge of humanity. That's who I am. I'm a seer. I'm a wire. But it makes sense to me. I wasn't done. I wasn't finished. Now, I'm not telling you that somebody had an NDE and invented all the pearly gate stuff. It's plausible. I'm just saying it's plausible. How many times do you talk about people, even science and the medicine are trying to figure this out? We don't know that. All I'm asking is, could some of humanity's spiritual traditions have been influenced by human experiences of people who were attempting to explain it? And then the question turns around. If I grow up knowing stories about heaven and having the religional background of Christianity, having the light, the gates, the crossing, God, creator, what they describe, then what happens if I later have another near-death experience and that same thing happens? What? Could the language and imagery I've already learned influence how I understand something that happened to me? Experience or interpretation? Well, the experience is mine. The interpretation, that gets funny because you're trying to figure out words. And when another man puts a label on those words and your experience sounds very similar to another man's label, poof, wow. How could that be? I'm not here to question God, Father, Mother, God, creation. I'm not. I'm not here to question any of your religional beliefs or any of your science beliefs or any of your man beliefs. I can only tell you what I experience. And maybe an experience helped create a tradition. And maybe tradition later gave another person language for their experience. And maybe both processes have happened across human experience. And I don't know. You know why? That's all I know so far. Haven't got there yet. I do know that my NDE had another question attached to it. This was the new awareness in speaking air. It was always about air, crossing your understanding of Father, Mother, God, Creator, and old imagery of those gates. And then ask the same question, whether they answered it or not. Was that experience influencing my tradition? Was that tradition then giving humans imagery with which to explain the experience? Again, could both occur. And now I find myself wandering back. And now, what was I experiencing? What actually happened? Was it true an NDE? Was it a dream? Was it that? How did I wake up over there? Was I experiencing something humanity has been attempting to describe spiritually for thousands of years? Or am I now just using everything that I've learned during my own lifetime and my own experience to give it language to the experience that I couldn't even completely explain what happened to begin with? I don't know. Just telling you the experience. And I'm not going to turn a fascinating question into a fact simply because the question excites me and the similarity patterns exist paralleling one another. That's awareness. There's that crack. The little more light that came through. Now that's all I know so far. Again, look what all that have shown us today. Dad gave me my words. Mom gave me an image. Young MJ, young Mary Jo gave mom's image her own interpretation, not what mom was saying to me. Then my experience gave me markers, patterns. Look at them. Louise Hay gave us questions about self-talk and repetitive language. Catherine Ponder gives us questions about thought, spoken words, intention, and belief. Prayer gives us an experience of directed thought to faith. And my NDE gives me an experience that I continue interpreting as awareness expands. Science gives us a tool for measuring pieces of what happens in that physical vessel called the brain. These are not identical things. They're different chairs around one enormous mapping question. What happens to a thought after it arrives? Medicine, science can dictate where that thought is in the brain, but it can't tell you what that thought is or where it came from. So we go to emotions, right? And when that thought has a feeling, because some thoughts barely register. Others hit us very physically, maybe in our stomach. Oh my God, it hit me in my stomach when I heard that. Or it hit me in my heart when I heard that. Your body tightens somewhere to feel anger, sadness, joy, love, excitement. Somewhere within your vessel, you feel that emotion. Now that thought, or you have the thought, now you have the feeling. So now that a feeling now is that emotion. And this is where Eckhart Tolle has to put a chair at my table, because Eckhart Tolle's concept of the pain body gives us another useful question. Something happened today. I have an enormous reaction. Am I responding only to what happened today? Is that plausible? Or did today's event really touch something much older that was already labeled, boxed, and put on a shelf or on a side? A memory, an experience, a belief, a fear marker, a box, maybe a past life marker. Woo! That gets deep. Maybe I ask, did this event shake one of my boxes? And if it did, why? And if it didn't, what changed? What did I learn between the first experience and this one? Did understanding change my thought? Did faith change my response? Did another experience establish a different marker? That is healing work to me. That's what I love to do. We've looked at words, beliefs, imageries, experience, prayers, fear markers, choices. We've looked at them all. And now life is going to give me an entire philosophy, one hell of a test, right? Because what happens to the understanding of consciousness when the brain processing I depend upon begins to struggle? That's right. 2021, heart consciousness, and one enormous why. So I'm going to tell you, in 2021, I received COVID. My whole faith, move forward, don't quit, was always, you could take my legs. I don't give a shit. Take them. I don't care. If that's what you want, take my legs. I still have my brain. I'm in my chair. My brain works. My hands work. I got it. Guess what, folks? 2021, I caught COVID. By July of 2021, I could not multiply 2 times 2. I would read a sentence and couldn't even understand what one sentence meant. My old joke, go ahead, take my legs. It's my mind that controls me. And then your discernment. Well, damn. Not only did you take my mind, you took my physical freaking body. What else are you taking from me? That was an unhealed MJ. Again, it was a trauma. It was an event that I had to go through. And that's what makes this story really important. You did not experience consciousness as simply just appearing. This huge consciousness shift for me, that movement right there into what I understood as the heart consciousness. I always tell people, stop thinking with the brain. That's man. Man labeled it. Man put those boxes in there. Speak from your heart. That is heart consciousness. And light therapy, mind power framework, thinking less from ego, judgment, and more through my heart. Now that gives my why or the next question. Now that gives me, if cognitive processing can change while I still experience an observer, what is the relationship between brain, mind, and consciousness? I have my spiritual understandings. Science has things that it can measure. And next week, we're going to put them all on those questions at the table. Creation, free will, and the shift. There is also a spiritual belief that I carry from that period. I believe in my heart, creation moves through energetic shifts when humanity's collective free will moves out of balance. I believe in those collective shifts. And the only person who could do that is creation. And that's my spiritual interpretation of what happened there. Personally, that long period of illness felt like a resetting of my whole entire vessel while my consciousness moved into another level of awareness. Can I put that in the laboratory and prove it? No. It's my own experience. It's my own free will. And it's my own intentions that I'm putting in my own knowledge and my own understanding. Can I tell you that's how I experienced and interpreted it? Absolutely. It's my experience. An experience that is only to you, and you're the only one who can experience it. My interpretation of my experience is my interpretation. A scientific explanation is a scientific explanation. And man, who's to say is right? I told you, somebody else had an NDE and so did I. Very, very, very similar. But yet their experience was different than mine. Why? Because I didn't live it. They did. And then some man put a label on it. Who's to say that label's correct? We don't know. We don't have to pretend that those 3 statements right there are identical in order to investigate anything. That's consciousness. That's discernment. And that's me, the wire. So let's come back to the original pondering question that we originally had and right in the beginning. Do thoughts create our reality? Or do thoughts influence the choices, perceptions, and actions through which we experience reality? A thought can arrive without permission. Once I'm aware of it, I can begin asking questions. Where did it come from? What does that word mean to me? What image did I attach to it? What experience am I remembering? What emotion came with that? Is this something somebody told me? Is this a learned interpretation? Did I interpret what I intended? Did I create another meaning for it? Do I believe this to be true? Why do I believe this to be true? And most importantly, what am I going to do with it now? Because awareness may give a space between thought and action. And inside that space is choice. Man's free will, man's choice. So where's our road? An event, something happened. I experience, I lived it. Thought, something arrives. Language, I named it. Imagery, meaning takes shape. Emotion, I feel it. Belief, I begin accepting something as the truth. Understanding, I recognize the pattern. Intention, I consciously direct myself. In choice, I decide. And in actions, I move. And then with that comes another event. Welcome back to my Fool card. Right. So the Fool keeps moving because the Fool comes home and the Fool keeps moving. Mom wanted me to pay attention to the cliff. Young Mary Jo heard, I have faith. I'm going to keep going. Keep going. Have faith. Just keep going. My adult MJ can finally hear both sides. Faith is my compass. Thank you, Mom. Faith doesn't mean I close my eyes. Faith does not mean that I ignore the test results. And faith does not mean that I pretend that an event isn't happening. Faith doesn't mean I know everything. And for me, faith means I can continue moving while remaining aware enough to look at where I'm going. Mom's message didn't disappear. Young Mary Jo's interpretation didn't disappear. My understanding expanded. So maybe that's what consciousness has been doing throughout this entire series, giving us another crack, another question, another awareness, another opportunity to expand what we thought we already knew. And guess what, folks? That's all I know so far. Let those walls crack. Let that light in. Sometimes one crack is enough because once the light comes through, I can see something that I could never see before. That's awareness. And then I can question it, experience it, understand it, choose what to do with it. And tomorrow, I may know something more. Because why? That would be all I would know. There it is again. A thought may arrive without permission. What we feed it, what we repeat with it, speak it, and act upon it becomes our conscious responsibility. Don't only ask, what am I thinking? Ask, where did I get that thought? What meaning did it give me? What experiences are attached to it? And what am I picturing? What am I feeling? Did someone actually teach me this? Or is this how I interpreted what they said? And then, now that I'm aware, what do I choose? Now, maybe that's the place where consciousness gives thought its greatest power, not in controlling every event and consciously participating in what happens next. So next week, science, here we go. Part 4, the brain meets consciousness, neuroscience, psychology, and the search for answers. And we're going to ask, what can science actually measure? What happens in the brain during the awareness? And what do we know about attention, perception, and conscious states? What are neural correlates of consciousness? And here's the wires question that I'm already carrying for you all that you can carry with you until next week. If we eventually map every process occurring in the human brain, will we have explained consciousness or create the most detailed map imaginable of something whose experiencer remains a mystery? Ooh, that's deep. Because measurement may tell us what is happening. Consciousness still asks, who is experiencing it? That's next week. So for today, I'm not asking you to leave here believing what MJ believes. I'm not. Just asking you to think about it. And I'm asking you to become aware of you, not me, you. Where did it come from? What experience built it? What language shaped it? What images live around it? and what emotions hold it? What happens when somebody challenges it? And what choices are you making from it? Maybe you'll find an old box. Maybe you'll find an old pattern. Maybe you'll find something that's no longer in a map that we are evolved today. And maybe you'll break one open. And maybe you'll discover that you don't need to destroy all your boxes and start over again. Maybe you just need to make a bigger box, right? And if it cracks from the walls, look through it. There's your next why. Folks, I am Reverend Mary Jo Gonzalez, known as MJ, and this is the world of conscious positive thinking. May divine guide you in your needs, and may the angels carry you home with peace, love, grace, joy, happiness, and abundance of what it is that you desire most. I'll see you next week, folks. Thank you for listening.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.